Okay, hello and welcome again. What I got here is a 4L60E. It's a 2006. The first digit is always on the General Motors is the year model. It's a 2006. The second digit is a C. So it's in a C body truck. It's probably a pickup truck or a Tahoe or a Suburban. And the HD, it's on one of those Tahoes or Suburban vehicles. So it's a 2006 C body 4L60E. We're going to do a teardown inspection on this, and the first thing that we need are tools. It's basic tools, 8, 10, 13, 15 millimeter sockets, little short extension, T50, and this is going to be a Torx Plus for the bell housing to remove the bell housing bolts. We have our snap ring pliers for the snap ring that goes on the output shaft, some pliers to hold the servo cover, screwdriver, and then I have this long screwdriver with a notch at the end. That's to get inside the case and pull the snap ring from the center support. Low reverse piston spring, return spring compressor. And our little grinding tool here, I have a gasket remover pad on it. That's just to clean this shaft before you take the manual sensor position off or digital transmission range sensor off. And of course, your cup of coffee. All right, well, I'm going to go get me another cup of coffee and we'll start disassembling this unit. Okay, so let's go ahead and start tearing this unit down. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to take the O-ring for the turbine, for the lockup piston that goes in the converter. This is the input shaft or the turbine shaft. We'll remove that. Now we're going to remove all the pump or our bell housing bolts. Okay, so now that we remove the O-ring for the input shaft, the torque converter, clutch, seal, piston, O-ring, let's go ahead and remove the bolts for the bell housing. It's a T50 Torx Plus and a little extension so you can reach in there, especially this bolt right here. Okay, now that we have our bell housing out of the way, we're going to go ahead and remove everything that's on the outside of the unit, everything external. So now we're going to move to the manual lever position sensor. We remove these two 13 millimeter bolts. Now we're going to remove our linkage arm. And before we slide this transmission range sensor out from the transmission, we're going to clean the edges here. The reason for that is whenever you tighten up this linkage arm on it, it kind of flares the bottom of it. And when you try to take the range sensor from the shaft, you end up damaging the range sensor. When you go put it back in, the indicator lights will be floating all over the place. There we go, it slid right out. Set out of the way. screwdriver and a hammer. Always bend it inwards so I can get my screwdriver behind it and get it out of the way. Now we're going to go ahead and remove our extension housing. Well, first let's remove our output speed sensor. Now if you're not familiar with your bolts, this bolt is shorter than the ones that go on the valve body. You're going to have about 7 bolts, 3, 6, like 9 bolts that look like this. They're a little longer. If you try to install one of those bolts from the valve body in here, you're going to end up breaking it. It's not going to bolt all the way in. So just to, as a preventive measure, just install this bolt where, back on the extension housing. That way you won't mix it up with the rest of the bolts. Now let's remove the extension housing. Okay, we'll get the extension housing out of the way. Now for the connector, the wiring harness connector, you need a special tool to push it in. Or we're going to do it by hand. We're going to try squeezing the tabs in and tap it lightly with the hammer. Just enough so that the tabs will go inside of the bore. There we go. We just push it in. Now we take our pump bolts, remove them with a 13mm socket. And this being an 06 model, it doesn't have a pump O-ring anymore. It has a molded pump seal. Once we get it out, I'll show that to you. I'm going to flip this thing sideways just a little bit. Push the servo in a little bit, get it loose. Get a screwdriver behind the snap ring. Go around and remove it. I'm going to use these pliers to lift it up. Get your 45-degree angle pick. This is what I use. And I usually don't tear that seal up. It's best if you just stretch it and pull on the cover, and it comes right up. If you rip the seal, sometimes it'll be real hard and brittle. It'll break in there. It'll make it more difficult to get it out because it's still going to be stuck on the snap ring groove. So this is the servo cover. This is our overdrive piston, servo piston. And this is our second piston. And this is like an intermediate cover that goes in between the second and the fourth. You got second inside the end cover and the second piston on the front. And this just separates the two. This is our return spring. Set it aside. Now that we got our servo removed, we're going to flip this thing over and remove our panel. See what it looks like. 13mm. Okay, yeah, we have a lot of clutch material and it smells pretty bad. See all that around the magnet? Looks like converter clutch. All these little crumbs all the way around. Have a lot of real fine metal on it. Let's go ahead and finish tearing this thing down and see what we're going to be able to find here. Okay, this is an 06 model. It doesn't have the input speed sensors. On 07 and up, they added a turbine speed sensor on the pump, and it goes wired right in here. Right next to the boost valve goes the wire, and it goes into the inside the stator support. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect our wiring harness. This transmission is not too old, so the wiring harness is still flexible, in good shape. Now on earlier models, or if the transmission overheated, these clips here are just going to break off, and that's normal. I mean, they always do break. And this one's not too old, so they're coming apart in one piece. Okay, now we're going to take our D10 roller, set that aside. We're going to remove all our 10mm bolts. This is the 1-2 accumulator piston. Accumulator assembly. We're going to remove the piston. A little bit of air, and it comes out.
Excuse me, boss. You have a text message.
Now, it is very common that the piston will crack from where the pin goes. This is in very good shape. There's nothing wrong with it. We just replace the O-ring. That'll work. 1-2 accumulator housing. Always check it for scoring. It's a little polished, but that's okay. This is fine. This is a good 1-2 accumulator housing. It's not scored. It has a plastic piston. Whenever you have an aluminum piston, it's more prone to wear at that area. Let's go ahead and remove all of our bolts. Now we're going to remove the pressure switch manifold. See these bolts right here? These are longer than the output speed sensor bolt. If you install this bolt on the output speed sensor, it will not tighten, and you may think that it's not going all the way in. You will force it and you will break it. Now to remove this, always twist it, press and twist. The reason for that is that you have O-rings here on the pressure switches. Now they're full with gunk in there, all that black soot. They're gold in color, but when you pull it, the O-rings are stuck on the aluminum, and you will bring the pressure switch with you, and you will destroy it. Okay, sorry about that distraction. Turn it off. Now we remove these 3 8mm bolts. And notice the position of these 3 bolts. And I'm going to show you why. You need to pay attention to where they go. They are longer. If you install this bolt here, you will cause a bind up. And The reason for that is because it's longer, it goes through the barrel of the case, and it will hold the sun shield stationary. So in other words, you will not have a reverse, and you will not have second, and you will not have fourth gear, and it will cause you a lot of problems. So pay attention where these 3 bolts go. One here, here, and here. All right, let's move the wiring harness to the side and remove the valve body from the case. All right, so we have 2 shift solenoids. We have a force motor or pressure control solenoid. We have the 3-2 downshift solenoid, and the torque converter clutch pulls width modulated solenoid. I'm going to take this cover off here. Same 3 bolts, same size, all the internal bolts, 8mm short bolts are the same. Have return 2 return springs. There's a valve in here. We're going to remove that. Always pull the pin a little bit out and then wiggle the forward accumulator. Same thing, inspect it for cracks or wear. And it's always recommended to replace this one with an aluminum one. On the older models, this is nice and white. If you see it dark yellow, it means that it's about to get destroyed or break. See another 8mm bolt. Remove the force motor, set it aside. There's 7 check bolts on the valve body. They stayed in the case. Okay, this is the little manual valve rod. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And a very common issue is that this check ball here gets stuck in the separator plate, and it causes the band, the 2-4 band, to burn. So more than likely, we're going to find that the band for second and fourth is going to be damaged. We'll remove the check balls. So it's 6 in total here on the valve body. You install them on the valve body and then on the case. 3 more 8mm bolts. Remove the spacer plate from the transmission. There's that check ball. See, it almost went through the other side of the spacer plate. Just going to push it. There we have it. Now this spacer plate like this, it's damaged, but there is a fix for it. They sell little fixes for the check ball to fix the plate. We're going to go through that later. Set it aside. This is the 3-4 accumulator return spring. We're going to remove the 3-4 accumulator piston. There's a 3-4 accumulator piston. It's aluminum. Always with the same pin. Just check it for wear, wiggle it. This is nice and tight. If it wiggles all over the place, replace the accumulator piston. Okay, let's remove our torque converter clutch solenoid. This is an on-off solenoid. And we remove it. It's part of the wiring harness. And now we remove the complete wiring harness. Set it aside. And there's another check ball here in the case. Right here. We're going to go ahead and remove that. You have 8 check balls altogether. You have 1 check ball captured in a little capsule. It doesn't come out, and then you have a third release check ball capsule here, and it doesn't come out. All right, well, let's remove our pump from the case. Flip this thing over so you can see it. And always inspect the inside of the stator support. The bushings, this bushing is white. If you see there, it's kind of chrome. This is a Babbitt material bushing. You see that in the front as well. There's bushings. When you see this type of bushings on your transmissions, always install brass bushings in it. These bushings are no good. They wear out fairly quickly, and it ends up damaging the stator support and the input shaft. It is very important to replace all these bushings. As a matter of fact, I have another video just showing the wear that the bushings create. Okay? Unanchor the band from the band anchor plug, and then just pull on the drum. Here we see the reverse input drum. Reverse input is in the inside, and second and fourth gear, this band applies here. And as you can see, this band is burnt, it's black. You can see some cracks here. There's some pieces missing here on the band. I don't know if you can see that. So there you go. And then I'll stretch it here a little bit larger. Okay. We're just going to remove the assemblies first, and then we're going to disassemble the sub-assemblies. Here is the output shaft, and here is a snap ring. We're going to go ahead and use our snap ring pliers, and we remove that snap ring. We remove our front planet assembly. Always wiggle it. Make sure it doesn't wiggle around. If it does, it needs to be replaced. It does have some bat wing washers. Just make sure that they are installed and they look in perfect health. Always kind of put pressure on the captured bearing. This bearing cannot be replaced unless you disassemble the whole planet. Make sure it's not damaged. When it's damaged, you'll know everything's going to be torn up. This is the ring gear for the planetary carrier. There's nothing wrong with the planet, so there should be nothing wrong with our carrier as well. Set that to the side. Here's another bearing. This bearing goes here. This is our sun gear shell. This plastic washer goes on top of the center support. This is a high rate failure on this unit. This sun shield looks good. It doesn't look worn out. But believe me, replace it. Do not reuse this sun shield because it's going to come back. They strip from here and they break from here. So even though it looks good, this is trash. We cannot use that. Reverse sun gear. Now here's the fun part. We're going to use this screwdriver with the little notch. I'm going to get this closer to the camera so you can see the notch. Put my glove behind it. Yeah, there you go. Yep. So you're going to use that notch to grab the snap ring, and then you're going to pull. You're going to grab and pull. Sometimes it becomes a little difficult. You just need to get behind it. There it is, coming out. I don't know if you can see it there. It's partially out. I'm just going to get behind it with my fingers and remove it. Okay, now we're going to wiggle the output shaft to get the rear planet out. There we go. And now we pull on it. Here we have our output shaft. This is our center support. Low reverse one-way clutch or roller assembly. Always check the race. If the race is a little worn, your low reverse clutch is worn and it needs to be replaced. Low reverse clutches, and they are also burnt. They're burnt up. Rear planet assembly, same thing here. Wiggle the pinions. They should not have any side play or cock sideways. If they do, replace it even though it looks good. And if it does cock sideways, you got to replace it. Put it to the side. Low reverse cushion plate or wavy. Put that to the side. Rear planet ring gear or carrier assembly, 2 bearings. Center support, this is an anti-clunk spring. Whenever you go from second to first gear, if this is not installed, the gear train in the back or the center support will slap and it'll give you a clunk going down into first. And you will hear the clunk. This is an anti-clunk spring. It's like a cushion spring. Okay, now we're going to drain a little bit our fluid here. If we want to get that low reverse piston out of the bottom of the case, we're going to use that tool here. I'm going to use this sun shield as support so that I can find the edge of the snap ring and then install it. Bear with me just a little bit. I'll get the camera over on that side. Okay. So here it is installed, and the openings of the snap ring are right here. There's one opening here and one opening right there. Okay. We use the same pliers. Get a comfortable position that you can get in there. Get the edges. Let me get my little hand flashlight out here so that we can see better. You can see, I can see. We get the snap ring out of here. I need to go further in. I have to wiggle. This. Okay. There we go. Let's get it out of there. Here we come. Get one side out. Here we go. There we have it. Remove our tool. Make sure the return spring doesn't get caught up in the snap ring groove. Get it out. Now, in order for this piston to come out, we're going to blow air through the feed hole. But we need to remove this bracket here that holds the parking rod and the parking pawl. And we want to do that so that the parking pawl will flip to the outside. And we reinstall this bracket and just thread one bolt, just partially thread it. That'll give some room for the piston to slide out once we blow it out. Okay? So we're going to blow some air through the feed hole, and it's going to pop right out. Here we have it. Okay, so everything from the barrel of the case is removed. Now let's go ahead and disassemble our drums. Okay. Reverse input frictions. You need 2 components for reverse. The low reverse are burn up. and these are the reverse input. What that does, it gives a reverse reaction. You have two components of both opposite ends holding together, and the planetary gear system starts spinning on the opposite direction. These are in very good shape. They're not burned, only the low reverse friction. Here we have our input bearing. And this spacer here is selectable. This is number 69, the very most common one. And this is to adjust the input clearance on the input shaft. 5 to 32 or $36 is acceptable on the clearance. Okay, we see that our third clutch is. Okay, let's continue here. 3/4 snap ring. Just remove the pressure plate. 3/4 clutches are smoked, man. Look at that. Okay, so we're going to need the backing plate. We're going to need the pressure plate. And the steel plates for third clutch. Go ahead and remove our forward clutch assembly. Two coast clutches. They're in fair shape. They have a little black mark on it. Slipped a little bit. Forward clutch assembly, first gear. They're in perfect good health. They come in the kit, so we're going to go ahead and replace it. We're going to check our input sprag assembly. Now before I disassemble this, I'm holding the sun gear. And the outer race is going to turn counterclockwise. And the inner race, I'm holding it because it's attached to the sun gear. But if I hold the outer race, the inner race is going to turn clockwise. Clockwise, counterclockwise. It depends on how you hold it. Always hold the center and spin my outer race counterclockwise. Let's go ahead and disassemble it. Always check it here for any signs of wear, pitting. Perfectly good. If one race is bad, the other race is going to be bad. So if one race is good, the other race is going to be good, and the sprag is going to be good. You can go as technical as to checking the wear, and over 30 thousandths. I mean, you measure it over 30 thousand wear on the shiny part. You need to replace it. And this sprag looks in very good shape. Set that to the side. Let's disassemble our pump assembly. Okay. Always check that the rotor does not score where it rides, on its working area. Remember the Babbitt bushings, they got to go. Install brass bushings, and I mean inside here it's in perfect good shape. You will see some scoring marks in it. This is nice and smooth because the bushing is not completely gone. If you want to see the damage on this Babbitt bushings, you can go to the other video that I have and why it's important to replace the bushings, and you will see this exact same unit. Well, not this unit, right, but another 4L60E that had that same issue with the input shaft and the stator support being damaged. Okay, now let's remove the rotor from the pump. You want to inspect the ends of the vanes and where the rings ride. Sometimes you will see some cuts on the sides where the expander rings will just wear them out. It's not the issue here. They're in very good shape. Let's check the slide. The slide with time, it'll turn shiny and white. This still has a little smoky color to it, which means that it's almost not new, but it's not wore out. You will see some shiny ones out there, but just check it, make sure that it's not scored. You don't see no lines, you don't see no pits. If you do, you have to replace it. It's got to go. Okay, so this is our teardown for a 4L60E. Check this drum for warpage with a straight edge, and they do warp. I don't know what I did with mine, but you get the point. Just put a straight edge here, put your flashlight in the back, and if you see some light shining through, replace it. Let me see what I can find to show you. Okay, this might not be the straightest tool, but we're going to go ahead and use it here. You put your light behind it, and if you see light coming out, I don't see any light, do you? If you see some light passing through there, then your drum is warped, and you need to replace it. Okay, so here we conclude the teardown inspection of this 4L60E 2006 on a C body Suburban. It could be Suburban, it could be a Tahoe, it could be a pickup truck. It's a 2006 model. 3/4 clutches are smoked. The 2/4 band is burnt. The spacer plate, the check ball was stuck in it. Needs a complete overhaul kit, a sun shell, all the bushings. Spacer plate we're going to fix. I'll show you how. And that's it. Let's go ahead and put this thing in the cooker, clean it up, and after we clean it up, let's assemble it. All right? Okay, so now that we have our transmission disassembled, we need to clean it up. This is the parts washer. It uses hot water and a special fluid that Alumacast or something like that is called. And it's biodegradable. It's used to clean the aluminum or the cases. You can clean your hard parts in here too. I do not recommend that you clean your planetary gears in here because the soap will get inside the pinions. But anything else, drums, steel plates, carriers, planetary carriers, and all that, you can wash it in here, except where you have valves, like the pump cover has 2 valves, the pressure regulator and the lockup valve, and the valve body. Don't wash them in here, wash them in the solvent, and you will have real good success. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the cleaning process. I'm just going to clean it up, come back, and start assembling. So here we have it. This is ready for the wash. We just close it, turn it on.